Message together, okay? But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer also the other. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, then what credit is it to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, where is the credit in that to you? Even sinners lend to receive as much back again. But love your enemies. Do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. Praise God for the hearing of these sacred words. You may be seated. Now I'm going to switch glasses. This is one of the perks that come with getting old. You have like 3 or 4 pairs that you switch back and forth to, you know. So I really thought today I wanted to deliver today's message like this, okay? But in all honesty, I'm not going to be able to see my notes if I do that, so this is the moment of cool. That's as long as it lasts. Most of you know that I'm a retired pastor. I retired back in 2010. I cannot believe it's been 12 years since I was doing full-time pastoral ministry, but it has. After that, actually shortly before I retired from that, I began work at USI as an adjunct in the philosophy department teaching ethics. Yeah. And one of the things that I noticed over time is that the ethics books, scholarly books written for college students, talk a lot about Jesus. I was really kind of surprised by that, so it kind of opened the door that we talk a little bit about Jesus in my ethics class too. And what is mentioned most of all when it comes to Jesus and ethics is found in the passage that we read today. And it's a passage that we have a nickname for that has kind of been handed down throughout the generations, but Jesus never uses that nickname. That's the golden rule, right? We learned that as children in Sunday school or vacation Bible school, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. According to college-level scholarly textbooks, it all boils down to that. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? After all of the Aristotle, after all of the John Stuart Mill and utilitarianism, after Immanuel Kant and ethical egoism and Ayn Rand and so on, it all boils down to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, I always stand in awe and amazement of that every semester when we talk about that in class. But when you begin to think about it, that kind of personal ethic, how it could improve our lives, how it could improve our relationships, how it could make us better husbands and wives, how it could make us better parents, how it could make us better members of a congregation, how it could make us better members of a community and of our world. Fascinating stuff. The gold standard of human ethics boiled down to that phrase, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, when Andy called me, or actually he used a real direct millennial method, he texted me, okay? We laugh about that, my wife and I, because that's the millennial way. You text someone, okay? I don't know if it's kind of, you're not putting them on the spot or what, but he texted me and asked if I might consider preaching because he was sick and he knew that he was not going to be able to be here today. And so it did give me a while to think about it, and I thought, okay, Andy, you've opened the door, so you've given Joe permission to show his travel log of 250 photos today of their trip to Hawaii that they recently returned. Okay? No, I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm not going to bore you with that. But it did give me the opportunity to theologize about our recent visit to Hawaii, where I saw firsthand and experienced a new kind, oh, and I just realized it, hello, a new kind of, sorry about that, you're lucky I have a really big mouth, where I was able to experience personally the Golden Rule, Hawaiian style. And I'd like to talk with you all about that today, okay? The Golden Rule, Hawaiian style. First slide, please. I'm the good-looking guy without his shirt on there at the end of the line, okay? Hawaii kind of brought out the, I don't know. No, that's not me. But this is our family at a luau that we had the ability, or the blessing of being able to take part of while we were there. It was about in the middle of our trip and all. And I begin here because I want you to know that this was a family event. All 9 of us were able to go, and we feel very, very blessed and fortunate to have been able to do this. But we learned a lot, and we learned most of all, not just from the beautiful scenery, which Hawaii is full of, but from the Hawaiian people, which you cannot receive through pictures in a book. You experience that one firsthand. And it began with, next slide, it began with what I call open air living. Open air living. Open air living for me means the recognition that when you're in Hawaii, everything's open air. I mean, the restaurants are open air, the hotel lobbies are open air, the hotel hallways are open air, the airports are open air, you drive by schools and they're open air. Open air means that you open up and you let the breeze and the beauty come in. And what that reminded me from the get-go, and there were times when it got a little hot, okay, but 90% of the time, it was cool, it was pleasant, it was breezy. You were constantly reminded of the presence of God kind of being there with you, breathing out, breathing in, just as the ocean kind of goes in and out, the air constantly around you. And that's open air living, according to Joe Mitchell, at least. And I really think that that says a lot about the Hawaiian culture. An openness, an ability to relax and be oneself, and just an invitation to a different kind of lifestyle than we typically are used to. Second slide. We had the opportunity on 3 different islands to drive. And I had read about this before we actually took the trip. I had read about Hawaiians' driving ethic, okay? which, believe it or not, is very different than Southern Indiana driving ethic. Hawaiian driving, even in their big cities such as Honolulu, is about allowing the person who may be struggling to get to where they're going the right of way. So if you're trying to make a left turn, the traffic on the other side suddenly stops to let the person make the left turn. If you're having trouble in some other way, the person behind you or the majority that's kind of trudging their way through, they slow down and they allow you to enter in. It is unbelievable. I mean, it is courteous driving taken to the extreme. My son-in-law, who does not like driving in big cities, especially big cities he's not familiar with, said, I could drive in Honolulu and not have a real problem with it because the drivers are so kind and courteous. And I'm reminded again, Hawaiian version of Golden Rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it even applies in such mundane tasks as driving a car and the way we behave on the road, which I will say I'm not always the best. I get angry, and I'm kind of out for myself when it comes to when I'm on the road. So it's a whole new way of looking at things. Next slide. This was one of our many tour guides. His name was John. But I show this picture, and Maggie brought it up with the children. And that is another ethic that we experience that exists very strongly with the Hawaiian people, is what I call the ethic of mahalo. Mahalo means a lot of different things, but among them, gratitude, respect, thankfulness. Now, those are three of the meanings of mahalo, but think about that for a moment and think about what that has to say with the way we treat others and the way we want to be treated. It was a unique experience, and you would hear people, saying to one another as you would go in and out of places, mahalo, mahalo, and it was a sign of respect and a sign of gratitude that you were there. And I thought to myself, the church, we should exhibit, and I think at Methodist Temple we really work hard to do that, exhibit a spirit of mahalo. So that when people are here on Sunday morning or when they're here for other events during the week, that they leave this place knowing that they matter and that they're important and that someone cares about them. That's the spirit of mahalo. And so that was another wonderful thing that we experienced on our trip with the family to Hawaii. Next slide. Now, not only is my beautiful wife in this picture and a beautiful background in this picture, but I want to talk for a moment, because I know that you're dying to know about it, okay? I want to talk about the world of fashion. Okay? Is there anyone in this room, and my family's excluded because they know this, okay? Is there anyone in this room who's ever heard of Tori Richard? Anyone ever heard of Tori Richard? You heard of Tori Richard? What can you tell us about Tori Richard? They do. They make Hawaiian shirts, okay? They make island wear. That's Tori Richard. I had never heard of Tori Richard. But when you're in Hawaii, you see Tori Richard everywhere. But here's here's a couple of the things that I really thought was cool about Tori Richard, the manufacturer and designer of Hawaiian clothing, okay? First of all, it was a multi-ethnic group of people that started the company. The name Tori and Richard comes from names of some of their children, okay? It was formed back in the 50s. It's a little bit older than I am, okay? So it's been around for between 65, 70 years. And it's all about taking art, applying it to fabric, and reflecting the diversity of cultures that is Hawaii. And I thought that was so cool that, you know, we live in a time where there's a big cultural divide in many places where we go, and things that we see in TV, and things that we hear in the world of politics and government. And as Amanda shared today, and it breaks my heart every time we have to say it, pray for the people of Ukraine. I mean, it just tears you up inside. Hawaii, even in the clothes they wear, focus on the positivity of cultures coming together and being respected, and a sense of gratitude for what each one brings to what the state is. And you feel that, and you feel this sense of so many different types of people coming together. And of course, many of them may be tourists, but you also sense, because we were there in a time of the primary season is taking place in Hawaii, because there were signs everywhere about people voting, you know, for this person and that office and et cetera. And I love it because the pictures, where do you go? Where do you go in the U.S.? And pictures of all of the politicians, they're all wearing flowered shirts and leis around their neck, okay? And their names all sound Polynesian or Japanese or Asian, or, you know, there are a few Indiana sort of names that you might hear in there too, okay? But most of them, you know, have a real sense of cultures coming together to make one. And so I thought that it was so cool that even the clothing emphasizes the positiveness of different people who look different and their names sound different, coming together and working together to make one. Next slide. Now, you have to really look carefully at this slide, because I'm not always the greatest photographer. But one of the restaurants we went to, they were almost all open air type restaurants. But one of the restaurants that we went to, there was a rooster in the tree. I didn't know roosters climbed trees, okay? But this rooster was in a tree that was probably 10, 15 foot up, okay? It wasn't a low-sitting tree. He was up in the tree, and he was, you know, making his sounds and stuff periodically during the dinner. It added a whole different nuance to island life. And to me, one of the coolest things about Hawaii, and another reminder of Jesus' golden rule, is we may look different, we may talk different, we may even be of a different species. But every life is valuable, and every life is protected also. Even the sometimes annoying chickens and roosters. And you see them everywhere. And I understand that it has to do with some major storms that they've had over the years and all, that has caused this wild population of chickens and roosters. Next slide. This one, I forgot at the second service too, so give me just a second here. Oh yeah. Of course, Hawaii, like Indiana too, you know, has beautiful sunsets and sunrises, and we were able to witness many of those. But one of the things I was reminded of when we returned home was the significant time difference between Hawaii and Evansville, Indiana. 5 hours, okay? If we were a little further east, it'd be 6 hours, okay? But 5 hours difference. And I'll tell you, 5 hours does something funny to you. When you get there, it only takes you like a day or so to kind of adjust to the new time. But when you get home, that's a different story. You want to sleep, you fall asleep in the middle of a good Hallmark movie, at 7 o'clock at night. I was hoping someone would laugh at that, but okay. And the one that was most amazing to me is how the 3, 5, and 8-year-old really struggled with the time change. They may, it's been 8 or 9 days since we've been home now. They may still be struggling over catching up with the time change. But the reason I talk about time change is this. There were a lot of lessons that we learned from the Hawaiian people during our time there. It is easy and most acceptable for us to just return to the time that we were used to. I hope in my heart that there's some of the change that we experienced that will be a part of us forevermore. A sense of mahalo, a sense of cultural diversity and respect for others, a sense of open air living, of God constantly with us and providing what we need. I hope that there are things that we can maintain and we don't have to return to Central Time too soon. We hold on a little bit longer to the good that we experienced, not just to the beauty, but mainly because of the people that we encountered. I want to end you with just a word, a little bit more about Jesus' golden rule and some things that can be gained from this, okay? First of all, the Hawaiian people helped me to realize that the golden rule calls us to be observant of one another, paying careful attention to those around you. For instance, you may see someone struggling to do a normal everyday task. You may hear of a neighbor who's been hospitalized, or notice a workmate who is discouraged. When you look out for the interest of others, in other words, do unto others, you are observant of those things, and you respond. The second point is to be empathetic. To be empathetic, to try to see it from another person's perspective. Again, an invaluable lesson we learned from our trip, because it felt to us as though the Hawaiian people had done a masterful job of assimilating various cultures and respecting them all, and seeing the good in each one of them, but being empathetic to other people who may be different from us. And then the final thing is to be flexible, to keep in mind that everyone is different, and what others like to have done may not be the same thing you want to have done. So being sensitive about this idea of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Not everyone wants the same thing, but we try to be sensitive to show people the respect and the love and the gratitude that we have for each person and each person's different gifts. Those are some of the things I did on my summer vacation, teacher. And I feel, and we feel as a family, just very, very fortunate that we had that opportunity to do that together as one. And thank you for looking at some of my pictures. If you want to see more, I've got about 5,000 on Facebook. But honestly, where we grow the most, I feel like, when we go on vacations, is learning from the people who live there and learning lessons that it may be a different way of life than we're used to, but it can be something that can bless us and improve our lives as well. I'm going to save this for the end after the last song. But I'm going to ask Amanda and the praise team to come up and lead us in our closing song.